Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do
Let's
this.
do this.
Let's do this. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 245 of the Board Game Barbecue podcast, brought to you by Advent Games and our wonderful Patreons. I'm Sarah, and tonight I'm joined by just one other. There's only two of us tonight, but it's not quantity, it's quality. Isn't that right? Def, thanks for joining me.
It is right. Thank you, Sarah, for that awesome intro. We only had to record that 6 times.
Right. We were giggling way too much at the start.
How are you doing?
I'm really good. I know that you're still like game day hungover.
I am a bit. So excuse my voice. It was a interesting day yesterday, the Brisbane game day. I tried to convince everybody that they should sell all of their games and just keep Frosthaven because you said so, but they wouldn't listen. So. Yes.
Sarah says so.
Oh, Sarah says you need to sell your games and only keep Frosthaven.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, I have something to say on that. You know how everyone sort of is crazy on trick-taking games at the moment? My prediction is the next craze is going to be campaign games, and I think it's because of Frosthaven, because I reckon that is going to shoot up there to, I reckon it's going to be better than Gloomhaven eventually. It's going to pass that on the charts. And I think when people are, because it does a similar thing to what Kingdom Death Monster does, where you're building up the town and things like that, and I think that Kingdom Death is a lot more niche. It hasn't, Frosthaven is going to spread that whole, you can do what? You can build up a town as well. That's really cool. And people are going to add that into their campaign game, I think. There's going to be a lot more games that do that kind of thing. And
it's interesting.
Yeah, I reckon there's going to be kind of a, what do you call it? In evolution, it's like a radiation event where everyone's, a lot of evolution happens at the same time. I think there'll be evolution in the campaign area, and I think that that's going to be the next wave of games that we see.
Well, two thoughts, or rather two questions on that. One is, do you think, creating a similar, not hype, just a wave, let's call it a wave of more games, of campaign games, is going to be as easy or as popular as the trick-taking games? Because what I'm thinking here is the trick-taking games are usually small games. They're much cheaper. They're quicker to produce, and so their Kickstarter campaigns or whatever don't take as long. And also they, and this one I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I do think they have a wider appeal than the campaign games. So I wonder if we are going to see a wave of campaign games as big as the trick-taking games, or it's, what you described there was almost like a, like an evolution, one game that kind of influences a new generation of campaign games in that aspect. But the second thing, to the point, is how much is that aspect of the game? How big, excuse me, is that
in Frosthaven itself?
In Frosthaven, how big is it in terms of both the time you spend on it, but also, how much enjoyment you get out of it? How much substance is there into that compared to just running around and doing the missions like in Gloomhaven?
He's definitely made it a bigger deal. It takes a long time. You don't even think it's going to take that long, but actually, you could spend an hour just doing the town stuff, and you're like, did we really just spend an extra hour doing that? So it does get quite involved, but
that's cool.
It's not quite 50. It's probably half of the time. The scenarios can go pretty long. We're playing with 2 players. With 4 players, the scenarios can be really long. I would say probably that would not be my ideal player count, to be honest, with Frosthaven. But yeah, so it's probably like because we're playing with 2, it's probably half of the time spent in town doing that stuff. But in terms of the enjoyment, like the portion of the enjoyment, I think it's quite up there. I think it is quite interesting, and seeing how the town actually develops, and it'll be, there's so many choices and so many like things to do that I'm sure that our version of Frosthaven looks quite different to someone else's who's done 40 scenarios now or whatever. So I think it is a big deal. And I totally, to your first point, I agree, like campaign games are not as far reaching. Like there are people that don't want to play something that's going to be that involved.
It's big,
just a smaller, just smaller games, and trick takers, especially like card games, they do have wider appeal in terms of audience size. So yeah, I definitely don't think it will match that in terms of scale maybe, but I do think people are going to go, oh yeah, this is cool. Like we can do, a different direction here. We can think about all this other things to level up besides your character.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting to hear that it actually, takes up a significant chunk of time, because that usually also means that it's not just an afterthought in the whole design of the game. So they didn't kind of went, oh, here's another 100 scenarios we got left over from Gloomhaven, or that we will design, whatever the direction was, and then what else can we add to make this a bit more? It sounds like it was a bit more, part of the whole design from the start. We probably need to ask Isaac about that.
Yeah, we should have him back on it. Well, actually, it's interesting too, because the whole story of Frosthaven kind of flows out from there. Like you go to Frosthaven. I don't think this is a spoiler, because it's like what happens immediately. You go to Frosthaven and it's like this, it's being attacked all the time. It's this crappy little outpost that's just getting completely hammered. And so that becomes the focus of the entire game, because you're there to help this particular town. So it focuses around the outpost itself. And so I think he's done a really good job of like, I didn't mean to talk about Frosthaven this much. I just realized, but anyway, it's all good. It's happening. But like everything that, the characters you unlock and things that you like, other scenarios you also unlock, all that sort of is coming from things that have happened in the outpost itself. I hope that's not a spoiler. I don't think it is. So it's very intrinsic to it. It's not just like, oh, we're going out doing our own little adventuring, whatever, and then we'll always come back to the town. It's more about that. You feel like part of the town, and the people of the town are important to you and things like that. I mean, it becomes a bit like that in Gloomhaven as well. But I've already played more Frosthaven than I ever played of Gloomhaven.
Yeah, that is quite something, I think. Yeah. But Frosthaven's been here only for a few months, so that's pretty big. That's interesting, because I was planning on talking about something that could tie into this, because I think the initial design of Gloomhaven with the card play is something that, one of those things that you mentioned before that will influence and has started influencing lots of generations of new games. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if it's one of those sort of timeless designs that we will start talking about later in this episode. I was at the Brisbane Game Day yesterday. There was a lot of people there. The rush in the morning was a bit crazy? To see.
Because before that, you missed the morning, right? The other game day, you missed the morning part.
Correct. Yeah. So yesterday I was there from the start, and there was probably, I don't know, 30, 40 people waiting outside of the venue, knocking on the door to get in, and the venue wouldn't let them in. And so we had to actually send somebody down there to say, hey, sorry, the venue's not open yet. We will open, soon, and we'll get you in.
Yeah.
And then there was this like rush of people with this queue going down the stairs, around the thing, and out the building.
Oh my gosh.
To get everybody in. And then after that, most of the people came in the morning, but there were people coming in throughout the day, which was great.
Yeah. I guess the people in Brisbane are very punctual. They all seem to be there, really early, whereas in Sydney, they're just like dribble in.
I don't know if punctual is the first word that comes to mind when I'm
Too
thinking
eager.
of Brisbane.
Really?
Eager, maybe.
You're meant to be laid back up there, but what's going on?
Yeah, that's right.
No
I
one's
don't
got
know.
anything to do on a Saturday.
Connor came up from Melbourne, which was fantastic. Got to spend a bit of time with him on Friday night. He stayed with us. So that was really nice because we don't get to see each other in person much in the team. I mean, in the podcast, the people that live in different states. So that was really nice. And yeah, I did a couple of games during the day. One was Gaia Project, which I had realized I hadn't done yet. So that was interesting to do. And then the other one was Age of Steam. And I was thinking that, Age of Steam is one of these really timeless designs. It's been out for more than 20 years, and you could see the reactions from the players that they really loved it and started immediately asking me about other maps and, what's in the game on the core box. And, and I don't think there's many of these games. There could be many more in maybe 15, 20 years from now, from our time now, but we're going through this, rush in board games design and publishing so many good games now. But 20, 25 years ago, I don't know how many games we could identify and say, hey, these games really stand up to modern, board games today. And I think Steam is one of them. And I do think that the Gloomhaven system will be one of these in the future as well,
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know where Age of Steam lives in the greater family of cube rails, because I know that's like a whole nother genre that I haven't even got. You know what I mean? And I don't know whether that is like, yeah, I assume that there's ones that are older than Age of Steam.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right. So maybe it's the fact that Age of Steam melded a bunch of of the best mechanics from all the other, you know what I mean? I don't have the background to know that, but
yeah,
wherever it came from, it has like I don't know, it seems to have kind of a magical formula. I guess it's like, the X factor, right? And I don't know really what the X factor is, but it just happens to appeal to a lot of people. It's got that incredible tight economy, very deep, simple enough rules.
Yes.
It looks great. That's thanks to, Eagle Griffin, which I don't know when they picked up Age of Steam. Actually, do you know when they?
I don't know, but you're right. They got
fancied
a
it
tool
up
to redesign the whole sort of premise of it. And I had a discussion with somebody yesterday that said, "Oh, it looks like there's not too much art in this."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, actually, I think this is perfect for this kind of game because I played just a few days ago. I played Railways of the World, which is one of the spin-offs or re-implementations of Age of Steam. And in Railways of the World, they made the art more prominent. So there's texture and forests and trees and whatever else on the tiles, but also a little bit on the map.
Mm-hmm.
And while it looks prettier at the start, once you start playing and you start filling the map with dozens and dozens of tiles, it starts getting in your way. It starts affecting gameplay, starts affecting your ability to figure out, oh, hang on, where's this track going and all of that. A bit too busy. And Edge of Steam is perfect. It's really clean. There's no additional things on the tiles. They're very, very clean. And I think that's exactly what it needs.
Also, the way, like how clean and simple it looks is actually a really clever marketing design too, because it appears like it's a simple game as well. So I think it appeals to more people, like it appeals to a wider audience, I think.
That's a very good point. Yeah. And I think the interactivity it introduces with the bidding and the action selection, mechanic to it, I think it elevates the game a lot more. And I think because those two mechanics, bring out interactivity from the players, that means that you're not counting on some kind of old, de facto design of the game or mechanic of the game to create interest. The interest is created by the players themselves on how they handle the bidding and, the interaction between them on that. And I think that is key. And the second thing is obviously because they created this system and you buy the base box and it has all the tiles for the tracks inside, then all the maps and all the expansions, they use the same material.
Yeah.
So, there's more than 200 maps for Age of Steam, and at least half of these are print and play. You can just print them out and play them at home, and anybody that wants to design a map can do it.
Right.
So there was a discussion on Board Game Geek a couple of weeks ago whether, we're going through an Age of Steam renaissance sort of era, because Eagle Gryphon did a campaign last year and published about 20 new maps.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another one running right now on Kickstarter with another expansion pack with new maps.
Yeah.
I just think that it's one of those designs that is really, really timeless. So it was very good to introduce new people to that yesterday.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think a lot of it is part of the interaction. And I know I've had this argument with people like countless times, and I just feel like a total curmudgeon. But, people will say, oh, this game's replayable. And I'll be like, why? And it's like, oh, because you vary the setup and everything's different every time. And it's like, no, that to me is not like if I think about coming back to a game, it's because interesting things happen. People surprise me. Usually it's because people surprise me. Sometimes it's because I don't understand how the game works yet and I want to dig deep into that. But, a lot of these sort of more modern Euros that are like not very interactive at all, they might have a lot of variability. They might have 1,000 cards and 1,000 different tiles that you change the setup every time. So the puzzle is slightly different. And it's like, that's actually not really enough for me. Like, I want people to do weird stuff and I want it to be hard.
Now, it almost sounds like that you're talking about a specific game then. That you have a game in mind.
Busted. Well, I did play a game a couple of times recently. I had this thought, and it was Revive.
Oh, yeah.
Which I know has already been sizzled. And I don't want to get off on a bad foot with this game because I did enjoy it for the most part. Like, I had fun playing it. I did think that, there was some addictive elements to it. Like, if there's tracks and you're going up tracks and you're unlocking abilities and things like that, it's hard not to get drawn into that kind of thing. And that was fun. But I do worry about the longevity of it. I definitely thought to myself, I'm not going to buy this game. I think I'll be over it soon. I don't think it's going to be one that I need to work hard at to understand a strategy. I already feel pretty confident that I'm not bad at the game. You know what I mean? And after 2 plays, I want to be bad at the game still.
Yeah.
But with that, I will also say that it comes with some unlockable stuff in a campaign. The person I would game with the most, who I talk about on the podcast all the time, is Kerry, and she bought it. And so I'm kind of, not locked into doing the campaign, but, she's asked me if I want to do it. So I might do it. And I'm going to do it as a test to see.
Yes,
I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, and there could be more depth here that I haven't seen yet. So, I'll probably give it a go and play through it.
I played it a couple of weeks ago, but it was an online play, so I always try to be a bit careful and sort of reserved when I only play a game online.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I enjoyed it, but I'm a bit. I've spoken about this before. After playing John Company a lot last year, my interests in some of these Euros have shifted a little bit. Maybe a little bit is not the exact measure here, but I do tend to get over very passive games very quickly.
Yeah,
because like you said, you may have different tiles and different cards, and so you get this sense of variability from different content, which there definitely is an audience for that, and I used to be part of that audience. I used to love that stuff, but I think now I look more for interaction between players, interesting decisions that affect everybody rather than just yourself. So yeah, it's probably not a game I would buy, but I would, give it another try on the table for sure.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say about the timeless designs as well, and what Age of Steam. Well, actually, this is I want to ask you this question. Do you think that it's a matter of having a fan base is the reason why, Age of Steam just has so many maps? Like, obviously, it is simple to make a new map for Age of Steam, but it's also like, I can think of a number of board games that it wouldn't be that hard to make a variant for, or make a different board, or whatever. But is it just the love of it isn't there? Is that what's needed? The fans are there, they're waiting, they want more of this game.
You make a very good point, and as you were asking that, I thought the first thing that came to my mind was 18xx games.
Yeah,
where I'm starting to think maybe this is a bit like chess. Why is chess popular? Well, because it was the only bloody game that existed for a few well, not the only one, but
yeah,
you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
and it was played by the aristocracy, and so it, retained its position and popularity and all that sort of stuff. So I'm thinking maybe this is why some of these games have, such huge longevity as well. It's because they have built early on a huge amount of, not a huge amount, but like more like a core, fan group around the world. And that is enough to keep the game going, even through ups and downs of, hype and other board game craziness that comes and goes throughout the years.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably sit here and name at least 5 to 10 games that I can think of from just the last couple of years that were super hyped, and I don't hear anything about them anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think that is, you're right, I think that is part of it. These games have built a fan base that loves them and plays them frequently, and it's just part of their hobby. Somebody that plays Age of Steam probably wouldn't ever not play Age of Steam, would never stop playing Age of Steam.
Yeah.
I've played a lot of Euros the last few years. I've stopped playing some of them. I love Terraforming Mars. I played a lot of it. Yeah. I'd be happy if I didn't have to play it again. I played it last week. I had fun, but if you told me, hey, you can never play Terraforming Mars again, I'd say, okay, that's all right.
Okay, fine.
But I don't think, I do think you have these games that are ingrained in some part of this culture, and maybe that's enough to keep them up there, and keep them fresh by all of these contributions with new maps and all of this stuff.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, so before I wanted to say it's because, it's these groundbreaking ones, or it's these ones that do something totally different. Like the first 18xx spawned a new genre of games, right?
Correct.
But then Age of Steam sort of defies that, because I don't think, and I don't know my Cube Rail history here, but I don't think it was the first one. I might be wrong. I don't think it was the first one, but I don't know. It somehow had the magic sauce to be the most, the standout in that genre, or just be more popular. It got out to a wider audience somehow.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe and maybe that's kind of I would say Gloomhaven spawned a new genre kind of as well, because
yes, I would agree.
Yeah, it's a dungeon crawler without dice, and that was groundbreaking. It may not be like a completely new genre, but it's a different enough experience that changed that genre.
It has, and look at all the huge campaign games we got the last, I would say, 3 years, since maybe 2020, which is after Gloomhaven was released. But you give the industry a couple of years to catch up with these innovations, and then start following or adopting some approaches. See how many of these huge campaign games have been created, and they may have dice in them, but they're doing things that we've never seen before. All sorts of different things, from the combat system in Oathsworn with the cards to, Euthia or Kingdom Death Monster even. There's dice in all these games.
Burn Cycle's a very unique action system. Very unique.
So I think that the success of Gloomhaven has given new life in that side of the market. I can't even remember what campaign games existed before Gloomhaven, apart from the standard
like Descent and
boxed sets of Dungeons and Dragons, that they did with, which was very, very sort of it's just an advanced version of the old Hero Quest design. All of these games,
right? Yeah, totally. That's the way I saw them anyway.
And now today we have so many different campaign games that do a lot of innovative stuff.
And I think that's the beauty, obviously, of these, sole creators or like self-published people, because they don't have to bow down to anybody. They can do whatever they want. Here's Isaac with this grandiose idea, right? And he just went for it, and it
took off.
It took off. It worked. Yeah. And he's coming out, he's doing a second edition of Gloomhaven, and it's ruffled some feathers. Did you see that?
I saw that, but
what's your opinion on that?
Well, I'm not bothered with it, although I don't understand why there would be a second edition of Gloomhaven, given Frosthaven's been received greatly. They have a Gloomhaven RPG coming out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would have the next game in the series in their heads at least. And so I don't know why they would go back to Gloomhaven. I know the game has a massive following, but I mean, I wouldn't buy a second edition of that same game. I would rather play Frosthaven or wait for the next game,
Right. I don't know where the numbers are at in terms of like how many more people own Frosthaven compared to Gloomhaven. I would have thought Gloomhaven still be more copies out there. You can probably check this on BGG, but maybe there are people who hopped on at Frosthaven and they want to do Gloomhaven now. But I think that I definitely think that he's learnt a lot along the way. There's a huge difference between like the writing, like the quality of the writing is much more interesting. Like I was getting to the point in Gloomhaven where I didn't even want to read anymore. I'm like, can we just skip?
Get on with the action.
Yeah, a little bit like that. So I think they've updated a lot of the writing. I think they've updated the rules a little bit as well. I think that Frosthaven is a little bit more streamlined. It seems a little bit more easier to sort of start leveling up stuff in Frosthaven as well. Either that or I was playing hard mode in Gloomhaven, because I never even retired a single character in Gloomhaven. My goal was so difficult. It was like, open this quest line and follow it all the way to the end, and I never even saw that quest line. So I was just plodding along with the same character for like 30-something scenarios. So it seems like that seems better. He's definitely I can understand why he's doing a second edition of Gloomhaven. I think that he wants it to be at that level. Okay. He's learned quite a lot of lessons, and but it's upset some people, and I think that's kind of silly, because like I look at my Gloomhaven box, which I think it cost me $150. That's how much it cost.
Oh yeah. It's a different world now, right? It's Frosthaven's triple the price, and don't forget, it's now been almost 7 years or maybe 6 years since Gloomhaven was released.
Right.
We've had second edition of games in other parts of the market in a much shorter span of time. Heavy Euros, even very, very popular games, say Great Western Trail, for instance.
Yeah.
Vital Lacerda's Kanban or CO2. I can think of a lot of second edition games.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons why publishers or designers would want to do them. Garfield Games recently did Circadians, First Light, second edition as well, which was different.
And there wasn't a long time between those two releases, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
I think it's totally justified. And plus $150, come on, for a game that huge. Like, I don't know how many hours I put into Gloomhaven, but I'm not upset that I spent $150 on it. I got my
Worth the
money's worth.
value. Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Yes. So should we talk some sizzles? We haven't even
Yes.
talked about sizzles yet.
Talk the sizzles. It's been the Frosthaven Age of Steam show so far.
We've talked about those before. Oh, well. Would you like to go first, Steph? Tell us about Hegemony.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. So yes, I was looking through my list of games to see which one I haven't spoken about. And even though there's been a few there, including a new coin game that just arrived, I was certain I wanted to talk about a game at some point, and I just haven't caught up in the episodes compared to what I was playing, and I found it. I found what the game was, and that was Hegemony. So Hegemony is a new game that was delivered to backers it was a Kickstarter campaign.
And you know the team, right? Or
yeah, so it's two Greek guys, Vangelis Bagertakis and Varnavas Timotheou. Vangelis, he's done other games. Most popular ones that people may know were Among the Stars, or Freedom, which is a game about one of the most popular Greek Revolution fights, or Kitchen Rush.
Kitchen Rush. Huh. Okay.
So this game immediately drew me in when I saw the campaign. It is about the battle, the socio-economic, economic struggle between the different classes. So there's 4 classes in the game. You have the working class, the capitalist class, the middle class, and the state. And these are the 4 players in the game. And imagine this almost like a very high interaction Euro at heart. It's still a Euro game, I would say, but it is highly interactive because everything you do in the game affects everybody else. So the game has delivered, on my expectations. My expectations were very high for this game, and I was starting to get a bit of worried that it may be a bit light on the theme side. And after having the experience with John Company last year, for me it would be hard to meet those expectations, and yet the game has hit and exceeded these expectations for me. And from what I can tell by ratings that people give it and the reception it got from the market, it's not just me. So the game plays 2 to 4 players. It's obviously best if you play it at full player count, but it does give you the opportunity to play it at lower player counts. It's just specific classes that play in that. And if you get the Kickstarter version, there is an upgrade pack that has automa decks for 3 other factions as well. So you could play it solo as well. This is a big, big, big game. Expect to spend 4, 5, 6 hours probably in your first game, and then after that you can get it down to, I don't know, maybe 4 hours if all 4 players know the game. And the way it works is, first of all, you realize that this is a serious attempt from the designers to bring a lot of the theme and the education for that theme to the board game market, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So the first thing you get when you open the box is this 50-page booklet that has basic concepts of essentially how the world works,
right? How
the economy works, how the socioeconomic climates shift, how policy influences direction of people's lives and things like that, how the foreign trading works, how taxation works. And it is absolutely fascinating because I don't know about you, but where I grew up in Greece, the exposure we had to these kinds of learnings was very, very limited. You have your traditional sort of classes, and probably these days you get a bit more exposure, but I found it fascinating. So they are really trying to I think, use this as a vessel as well. And I know that there's some universities in Europe that are actually, starting to look at the game as a mean to educate their students, which is fantastic. So the 4 factions in the game, they have their own way of playing the game. The main mechanic is the same. You go through 5 rounds. And in each round, you have 7 cards in your hand, and you have 5 turns. So you will play 5 of the 7 cards. And when you play a card, you can either do one of your basic actions that your faction can do. So, for example, the capitalists can open a new business.
Yep.
Or
sounds like something they'd do.
Yeah, or you can do what the card says, and usually what the card says is a more powerful version of one of the things you can do in the game anyway. But the cards have requirements and things like that. But the requirements of these cards is where it starts giving you a real connection to the theme, because it says, for instance, you can do this if the policy X is at this level. And this is the entire game. The game board has a section at the top with 7 different policies. So these policies are about taxation, they're about the labor market, they're about foreign trading, things like that. And they have three different levels. And so on one side you have, nationalistic, I guess, policies. On the other side you have liberal policies. You have globalism, you have, nationalism, you have all sorts of different ways that these are represented in the game. And these policies, the players are the ones that decide to vote on changing them.
Right. Yep.
But as soon as a policy does change, it affects other things that can happen in the game. So, for instance, if you change the taxation policy, maybe the capitalists have to spend more money in tax. And so they're incentivized to keep the taxation at the lower level because that helps them.
Yep.
But that influences other things in the game. So, you have your cost for public healthcare and public education. And so it is a very interesting balance between doing the things that you want to do, but also not letting the others get their own way.
Yeah.
And the game is so interactive that essentially the 4th class, the state, it's a very interesting one to play. It's the one I played last time I played the game. They don't, because the other 3 classes, they're about, the capitalists start new businesses, and the middle class and the working class need to send their workers to those businesses. They get paid from the capitalist class for doing work there, and then the capitalists create goods that then they sell back to the working class people to raise their their lifestyle, their prosperity.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
And so it has this whole cycle. And the middle class is somewhere in between. They have workers of, but they also can open a couple of their own businesses. The state, however, what they do is they score points based on their 2 lowest. They have these markers where they track how well they're perceived from the 3 other classes.
Right.
So their 2 lowest markers at the end of the round is what gives them points, which means they cannot favor anybody. As soon as they start favoring in class,
people get upset.
They upset the others. They miss out on points.
Right.
So, I could talk quite a lot about the game, but it is, I think, on that same category as John Company in terms of games that show so much work has gone into them, so much planning, so much love, and so much consideration in terms of what do we want people to get out of this? Do we want them to simply have fun, or do we want them to have fun but also learn a few things, enjoy the game in a way that is a lot of fun, very interactive, but also, gets you across real world examples or real world principles.
It sounds like it really nails it. Like in terms of the mechanics, it really makes the players go, we need each other. We all need each other.
That's
you need
it.
all these things. How does the actual enacting of the laws work? Like, how do you vote on them?
So there is a bag that has cubes from the 3 classes. So the working class, the capitalist class, and the middle class. And there are different actions in the game that you can take to influence the contents of the bag. So, for example, the capitalists have, can't remember if it's the capitalists class, but there's an action that is media influence, right?
Right.
So you can add more of your own cubes in the bag, or you can remove some of the other classes' cubes in the bag.
Right.
When one of the factions proposes a new bill, which is to change one of the policies to something that suits them better, then you draw 5 cubes from the bag, and that's it. The result is the result. However, there is a mitigation mechanic there, which is influence that is these purple cubes that some of the classes can have on their boards, including the state, because the state doesn't vote on the proposed bills, but they can influence the result by spending influence cubes. And so that's how the voting of the bills works out. The other, I guess, mitigation mechanic is that if you help get a bill passed, then you also score points. Whoever proposed the bill, if the bill passes, they score 3 points. If you helped them, then you score 1 point as well. And the factions that voted against it, if it didn't fail, their cubes go back in the bag.
Okay. So they're more likely to come back later.
They're more likely, yeah. So the game is surprisingly simple once you've gone through one play, because the actions are very, very simple. So, it's more about doing the connections of how things work in the world with the actions in the game. So, for instance, the working class can go on a strike if there's not enough working spots in the companies for their workers to go work. So if they have more unemployed workers than there are vacant positions in businesses by an X amount, which I don't remember what it is now, but if it exceeds that by a certain number, then they can go on a strike.
Right.
So those companies that are the workers on the strike, they don't produce anything at the end of the round. So the capitalists, then their option is we could raise we could either raise the wages to get them back to work, or we just accept they don't produce anything, or we have to give them more options for work. So we have to open more businesses. So there's all sorts of, these different, I think, it makes the game relevant when you're playing it,
Yeah. It sounds very layered, Def. It sounds very deep. It sounds like a Civilization game that I want to play.
That's an interesting analogy. The progression of the game is not what you'd expect in a Civ game, but it does have progression in terms of the evolution of its faction in the game, of each class.
Yeah.
And because each class scores in a completely different way, and I don't mean only as in with different objectives, but I also mean in a different way. And what I mean by that is, for instance, one of the classes, their thing is they score points during the round.
Yeah.
Another class, they only score, their main way of scoring points is at the end of the round. So that's the capitalists. They don't score usually any points during the round, but at the end of each round, what they do is after they pay their taxes, they look at how much money did they make, and they add that to their capital, and then they look at how much is that compared to what we had before. Is it more? Then yes, we score a bunch of points.
Right.
While the working class, they don't score points at the end of the round. They score a very small amount if they have trade unions created. But they score points during the round every time they provide goods to their workers. Every time they get them education, every time they get them healthcare, they score points.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not just different things that get these factions points, it's also different points and paces in the game.
That's
which makes it really tricky to figure out, what is going on here? Who is actually
who's doing well in this game?
Yeah. So
that is really interesting.
I mean, I do want to play it more to see, if it lasts, if it gets samey or if it lasts, the test of time. These games, they need to be, I think, tested throughout quite a few plays to see how you go with them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the first few games have been a massive success, and everybody that I've played with really enjoyed them. It'll be interesting to try and play a few more of this year, and hopefully we can talk about it later in the year if you play it as well.
I'd love to give it a go. And the reason why I think it sounds a lot like a Civ game is because it sounds like it tells the story of, the struggles of like you said, the world, right? So I imagine like after this game, you would be like, oh, I can't believe, you as this faction did this and then this happened. And like I can imagine it creating some, different stories each time you play it.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing which is, it's small, but it does show, I think, the intent behind the game, and it does make me feel like I did the right thing to help them produce it, is they've created a tiny expansion, which is just like a little small deck of cards.
Right.
It's called the Crisis Response. What this does is, it's very, very interesting what they've done. The game lasts 5 rounds, right?
Right.
So what they've done is they said, okay, well, let's see if we can turn this into and I think this will go very well with your comment about Civ games. Let's see if we can turn this into a historical representation of things as well. So you have 5 rounds, and you have this small deck of cards, and there's 5 different eras that these cards are divided. And so you shuffle each deck separately, and you get 1 from each era. And these eras are from, the 1700s, the American Revolution to modern day. And what happens is you draw these cards at the start of each round, and they give you a real event that happened during that time, and that changes
some
everything.
Kind of crisis.
And that changes everything in the game.
Right.
If that, maybe it has some requirements. Maybe there's a...
it might not happen if... So it's like a triggered thing. Like
it's a triggered thing, or it's a thing that affects everything, and you can negate it by triggering something else.
Right.
It could be one or the other. So, for instance, you have, for example, there's a card called EU austerity measures from the modern times, and then it immediately changes the policies to specific things because it comes under what did the EU did to battle austerity. And then as a result of that, it has a permanent effect during the round. It has a cost to the state, because obviously the states got smashed during that time. So it creates this additional layer of, it's not complexity, it's this additional layer of, things to uncover during the round, which I would suspect make each play very, very different.
Yeah.
But also, I said...
It seems like it would create some more, like, potential negotiation elements as well, right? Like, if you don't want it to happen or whatever, you might say, hey, let's work together to not trigger this thing, or, like, if it has requirements or whatever.
Correct. And there is a bit of negotiation in the game as well, because especially around proposing bills and supporting bills and stuff, you don't have to, voice your support or rejection of a bill until the actual vote is about to happen. And so you can get influenced by what other players give you or promise you and things like that. So it's been a very enjoyable experience. Again, it's a long game. Some brave people were playing it at the game day yesterday in Brisbane. So I'd be really keen to, if you're listening, I'd be really keen to hear what your thoughts are on our Facebook or on Discord. Please start the new thread and let us know what you thought of the game. But I would like to, this to be discussed a bit more. I'd be interested to see what people think of it.
Yeah, I am very intrigued now. Like it sounds pretty amazing, actually. I'm totally keen to play it. I'm guessing, like with the 7 cards that you have, they're all different, right? For each.
So each class, yes, I didn't mention that. You're right. Yeah. Each class has a massive deck. And so if you refill your hand up to 7 at the end of your round, which means you only see 30-something cards by the end of round 5, but every deck has, I think, like 60 or 70 cards, so you don't even see all the cards in one game.
Interesting.
But again, I think that, the key there is not so much what's on the cards, but how does that impact the state of the game we are at that point? Because in different games, you'd have different situations with the other factions and how that affects the other classes, which I think is what will, make or break the game eventually in terms of its longevity and, how much we're going to be talking about this in the years to come or not.
Sounds fascinating. I want to give it a go.
I think you will like it. So, yeah.
I got to find someone will have it. Someone will have this game. Will have it.
So that is Hegemony. I think the full title is Hegemony: Lead Your Class to Victory. But yeah, give it a go if you can find it.
I wish I'd gone first. Can I just say that? I wish I'd sizzled mine first.
Why?
I feel upstaged. I can't follow that. I can't follow Hegemony with Mists over Carcassonne. Come on. What else can I talk about?
I'm actually pretty keen to play Carcassonne. I haven't played Carcassonne since I started getting into this modern board games craziness.
It's been a while. It's been, I used to really like Carcassonne quite a lot. And then, I don't know. I sort of gave up on it a bit. But it's actually pretty, you know what killed it for me? Land versus Sea. Land versus Sea
yes,
killed
I remember
it for
you
me.
saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was getting so frustrated with Carcassonne only giving me 1 tile. Like, why does it only give you 1 tile? It's not enough choice. But of course, it's really cool. Actually, I also had the Carcassonne app that I used to play solo, because I don't know if you've ever played it solo, but it has a really neat challenge where so in the app it gives you like a different, I guess, setup each time, like a seed, right? It gives you a seed tile deck. And what you've got to do is, from this tile deck, the way it is, you've got to try and complete, cities and roads, and what's the other one? The church, the
villages,
monastery?
Yeah, I haven't played it in so long.
But you've got it when you complete cities and roads in the solo one, you have to do it. You have to complete a road length of 2, and then a road length of 3, and then a road length of 4, like in that order. You can't. Okay. And you get you get less and less points the bigger out you build it. So you've got to try and build a really tight knit city, and you've got to make sure you do in order. You can't close a 4-length road before you've closed a 2-length road. It has to be length of 2 road, then a length of 3, then a length of and you've got to do that. I think it's with 5-length road and a 5-thing city, and then if you do it, you win or whatever, and you get a certain amount of points you get if you manage to do it properly. But I always spread out way too far, and anyway. So that was the last time I played Carcassonne. I was playing that challenge, which was pretty cool. But so I got Mists over Carcassonne, which is the new cooperative Carcassonne, right?
Cooperative, you say?
Just raising one eyebrow. Yeah, cooperative Carcassonne, right? It's also stop it.
I would have believed you more if you said there's this new, PvP Gloomhaven that is coming out. Cooperative Carcassonne. Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. But it's also an expansion to Carcassonne normal as well, I think. Yeah. Because like they can do everything now. They can, we'll give you an expansion and a new game. So I haven't played it as an expansion. I've only played the co-op version, and I played it with the kids because, Ren's been playing quite a lot with me lately. And even Zolly likes this one as well. It's harder to get him to play a board game these days, but he's been playing it with me as well. He likes it as well. And essentially what you're trying to do is, it's called Mists over Carcassonne because there are these tiles that have mist on it. And in the mist, there are ghost figures, scary ghost guys.
Okay.
Yeah, just go with it. It's fine. So these ghosts, you have 15 of them. And every time you put a tile down with mist, it will have a certain amount of ghosts that are in the mist, and you have to put them on the tile. And the ghosts are very frustrating because there is a lot of mist, and it's really hard to close off, and that's the way you get rid of ghosts, is by closing off the mist areas, and then you can remove all the ghosts in that area. So you're trying to close off the other stuff as well. So you're trying to get points for closing roads and for closing cities, but you're also trying not to lose. You lose if you can't place a ghost, and you only have 15 of them. So there's different levels in this game, okay? The first level is as simple as what I've told you. Then, wait, what?
Keep going.
Okay, so level 2, it gets even
levels
harder.
As in difficulty levels.
Difficulty levels, right?
Yeah, I get it.
So the first one, with the ghost one, you have 15 ghosts. If you can't place any more than that, then you lose, and you've got to get to 50 points. Okay? Then the second level is you've got to get to 75 points, and you bring in cemetery. There's cemeteries, and cemeteries, if there is a little, or a graveyard or something. Cemetery? I think it's cemetery. If you put on a cemetery on the board, every time you place ghosts, you have to also place one in the cemetery.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It gets real. It's like ghosts are everywhere in this game.
That sounds like a pretty good challenge, honestly.
It's hard. It is legitimately hard. And I was like, maybe it's just the kids, maybe they're the weak link. But then I did play it with Kerry as well, and we lost like 3 times in a row. And she's like, "What is this, Sarah? We're doing it wrong." I'm like, "We're not doing it wrong. We're just no good." Yeah, it's really hard. So the thing about the cemetery is if you move somebody, if you close an area and you move somebody, like instead of scoring it, you can remove all the ghosts from a cemetery, but it's instead of scoring. And it's the same with, and even in level 1, you can do this too. You can forego scoring to remove 3 ghosts from a single tile, up to 3 ghosts from a single tile. So if you get desperate, you can go, right, well, we've only got 2 ghosts left. If we get a tile that has 3 ghosts on it, we're going to fail the mission. So instead of scoring for this city, I will just remove these 3 ghosts. Sometimes you have to do that. It's so painful when you have to do that, though. It's really hard, especially if it's a big city or like something you were going to score, quite a lot for.
So what you're saying is Carcassonne Cooperative actually works?
Yeah, it does.
That is great.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the other cool part about it, the thing that everyone hates in Carcassonne when someone sneaks onto your city?
Mm-hmm.
In this, it's good because the score is joint. If you get someone else on your city, you do score it twice. You score it if you got on my city, I would score it and you would score it. So we would both score it.
Okay.
So you want to do that as much as possible. Yeah, that's right. It becomes a really nice thing in the game. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel nice feelings instead of, I hate you. Why did you get on my city?
Do you get the same length in the game with this one, or does it extend the game time at all?
It's the opposite. It shortens the game time.
It's quicker.
Yeah, it's a lot quicker because it really, and it can be over really quickly if you get super bad luck. It's really tricky. You've got to know when to sacrifice scoring. You got to do that when when you can. Ghosts. Yeah, you get rid of those ghosts. You've got to keep them down a little bit because it can escalate really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you have a bad run, it can escalate quickly. I mean, not all tiles have It's funny, not all tiles have mist on it, but most of them do. But those ones that don't have any on, you're like, phew, no more ghosts. We're safe. There's also a castle, and I don't even think we've used that yet because we're on level 2. We haven't been very good. Oh, the other thing, you can close the cemeteries. So with the cemetery tile, if you have like orthogonally placed tiles, so one at each orthogonal space, you can close that cemetery off, and then you remove the ghosts from it, and you can't use that anymore. But then you have to put someone that was on the map onto that cemetery. So you start losing your meeples, your scoring opportunity. You can't place as many out to score because they're buried in the cemetery, which is a little bit grim. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit grim. They should have released this at Halloween. I think they missed an opportunity there.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So is Carcassonne then one of those timeless designs that we were talking about earlier? Because think about it, it's as old as Age of Steam, if not older, and there's been a gazillion tiles and expansions released for it. You don't do that if the game is not performing well,
Right. 100%. I think it probably is. Do you think it's groundbreaking? I think it probably does stand out from a tile laying perspective, because I can't think of another tile laying game that's quite like before Carcassonne that was as mean and does it as well and has that interesting interactivity there.
Well, no, that's not it. I remembered what was that farming game in the big box? Glenmore Chronicle, Glenmore 2. But that's only separate. Like each player lays tiles and do their own thing. It's not a shared map, which is what makes Carcassonne the game it is, I think. But isn't it interesting that it does one thing, tile laying, right? It doesn't need to do 100 different things. It doesn't need huge complexity. It does one thing and it does it really well.
Yes.
And again, it could be that, it was early enough in that market that grabbed a lot of fans, and it's so popular today that, it's immediately recognizable everywhere. It's probably one of those games you can find in shops that don't really sell board games.
Right, 100%. And I think if we're going to talk about, we have to talk about the other C one, which is Catan, because that's another one as well. I mean, that's like the driest Euro you could ever imagine, and that's got fans that aren't even in the hobby, like people that don't even like board games that know Catan and will play it. You got like famous people saying they love playing Catan and stuff like that, just because it did that whole negotiation thing so well.
So have you played other expansions of Carcassonne?
I have. I've played.
Is this the one that stands out? Was going to be my question. Or do you remember others that you'd say, "Oh yeah, I really like that one"?
No, I don't. Honestly, I've played a couple, and I've just been like, let's just play the original. And I think because this is a different way to play it. It's not just an expansion. It's a different way to play it, and for the kids, it's great. It's really good. They love the ghost thing. Ghosts are exciting. Ren loves the ghost thing. She's like, oh no, the ghosts, and she like plays with the little, the little figures, and so I think it's for families. It's great because Carcassonne, I think, is a little bit mean for the kids, and it's very competitive. Yeah, I couldn't play that with my kids.
I was thinking of King Domino as a tile-laying alternative that took the basic principles from Carcassonne and then turned it again into, you're building your own thing, nobody's going to mess with that. Then you're just trying to optimize your scoring. But
that's another good one for families too, but it is
it's
a little bit harder for the kiddos.
It is a little bit harder because of the maths and the concepts of multiplication and stuff.
But it is good for the kids for the maths reason. Like I used to get Zoltan to do the maths himself
I do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's really good. I honestly do recommend it if you're going to play with families and with your family, because it is fun.
That's great.
And it's really hard. And so, when a co-op's really hard and you lose together, it's not so bad. The kids will go, let's play it again.
Let's try it again. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and it's
That is
super
awesome.
quick. Especially if you lose, it's really quick. So that's not quite the same as, not up there with Hegemony, but all the same, it's fun.
Still very good.
Yeah.
Mists over Carcassonne. Very good.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning the name again, because sometimes I forget. I did want to also just say a quick apology, because someone last time I was on the show, I sizzled past the party food and I didn't mention Meredith Walker Harding's name because I'm terribly unprofessional. I actually emailed them both, and I apologize because, someone did point out that it was, it did not sound good. And I didn't mean to say that it's, Phil Walker Harding's business and, and his wife. Like, I wanted to mention her actual name. So, last time when I mentioned Pass the Party Food, I should have said Meredith Walker Harding was the artist for the game, and the games are there on Joey. It's Joey Games. So go to the website, check it out, because they're amazing kids games too. And in fact, I was at a birthday party with Ren yesterday, and the subject of board games came up.
Oh, really?
Yes. And there was a lady there, and she was saying that her kids like Mousetrap. And I said, well, I've been playing some, more like newer games, more modern games with Ren, and she loves this particular one. And so I told her all about it. I told her about Joey Games. I'm like, go to the website. I'll just work in my magic.
Awesome.
Yeah. She's like, what's it about? And I'm like, it's actually about this kind of, like, it's about everyone at a party and the dog's trying to eat all the food. Yeah. So hopefully she checks it out.
Awesome.
Anyway, with that, let's move on to the next segment. So, announcements. We've got a couple of board game days coming up, and in fact, they're on the same day. Melbourne and Sydney Game Day, both on June 17th. So the Melbourne Game Day is at Preston Town Hall. There's still tickets available. You can go on Eventbrite, search up Board Game Barbecue, and the Melbourne Game Day is there. You'll be able to buy tickets. Sydney Game Day, also June 17th. It's at Castle Hill RSL, which is where we were last time. In fact, we've been there every time. So tickets are also there on Eventbrite. And we should have some scheduled teachers. So if you haven't been to one of our game days before, we do scheduled teachers where we actually teach you games, and our beautiful volunteers also teach games. And those should be up pretty soon too. So you'll be able to add yourself to that. And we're having a special event at Sydney Game Day as well, where we're going to be joined by Kim Breback from Good Games, and he's actually going to show like a really special game that I've played before, which is amazing. It's called Drift. It's about rally car driving, and it actually feels like you're driving. Like, it's a board game where you feel like you're actually rally driving. Mechanically, it works. Like, you have to think about how you're going to turn every corner in the track. I'd love to play that. It's so cool. So anyway, so he's bringing that. We're going to have a couple of tables. He's going to run a competition. Anyway, there's going to be an email out about that. But be sure to put your name down. Check that out, because I can already recommend this game. I've played it. It's awesome.
Excellent. More events coming up.
If you're looking to add to your board game collection without taking out a second mortgage, then look no further than Advent Games. Dean and the team don't just sell games, they play games, they know games, they love games, just like us. The first thing you notice when you head to adventgames.com.au is the amazing range of games. Dean and the team have worked tirelessly to make sure that every game is properly catalogued into the website. You can search by card games, dice games, family games, gateway games, solo games, and games from your favourite designers. And they don't just have games. Advent has a huge range of RPG books, game inserts, organisers, sleeves, even miniatures and scenery to make your next game night an experience to remember. Shipping is a flat $10 if you live in the Sydney metro area, $15 for the rest of Australia. And don't forget, if you sign up for their newsletter, every Friday you receive an email with the latest specials, newest arrivals, and a list of all the games that have just come back into stock. So there's no excuse for missing out on that game that you desperately want in your collection. So why not grab your next Sizzling game from Advent Games? Head to adventgames.com.au now.
So the question of the pod last time was, what childhood cartoon would you like to see as a board game, and what would that look like?
I have so many thoughts on this. I started posting a reply, and then I was like, no, that's not right. I would prefer and then I realized I have so many childhood cartoon memories that are so preciously tucked away in my head that I couldn't pick.
And nothing could live up to it, I think. Like for me,
of course.
Yeah, nothing could live up to what it was. Although, for the nostalgia, it'd be awesome.
The nostalgia is the main thing, yeah. But we got a lot of responses about this, and I think that I listened to the previous episode where Mitch and Adrian discussed it with the Motor City Games guys.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing, They had a lot of memories from their childhood years watching cartoons, but I still could come up with a lot that wasn't mentioned there. So I don't know if we're ever going to see a game with any of those themes, but you never know.
Come on, Def, tell us some of the cartoons you used to watch as a kid.
Oh, I mean, I was a big fan. Yeah, I was a big fan of the Thundercats show.
Yes.
I also loved the other one that was running at the same time, which was Silverhawks. Which was these. I don't know if you've watched that.
No, I didn't.
That possibly has the best intro in terms of like music and stuff. You should look that up on YouTube. Search Silverhawks intro.
Okay, I will.
So those are a couple I remember watching a lot. I watched a lot of Transformers, but that was because that was the only one that was available in Greece when I was a little kid. Outside of those, so I don't remember, specifically loving that. It was just what was available on the Saturday morning. I was a massive fan of the early cartoons with the Roadrunner and Willy Coyote, so these were not available anywhere back then to watch. Right. But my dad had these old projection machine that they would use in small theaters, and he had this recording, this camera device that was really, really old, and I'm pretty sure it still exists in our home in Greece somewhere, and he used that to record some of our very early birthdays.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then we would have to set up the whole projection device and play it through that.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of commercial tapes available with film, and those were all Roadrunner cartoons, and so that was almost magical at the time, right? Yeah. The sound
it'd be
coming
magical now too to watch that on the projector thing. That would be that looks so cool.
It was one of those things that turns the tape around and moves it to a smaller tape, and it sort of winds up. Yeah. So the sound, the noise that it made was almost as you couldn't really hear the sound of the cartoon because it had this like tiny little speaker on it, the device.
Yeah.
And the sound of the tape winding up and moving from one part to the other was deafening. And yet, that whole experience was almost magical.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I would even begin translating any of these into board games, but...
Oh, that would have to be a dexterity game.
Yeah.
That would have to be a dexterity game. You'd have like all this, you'd have a kit of all this weird, Acme stuff that you could like throw at the Roadrunner or whatever, and then just, and fail most of the time, I guess.
Yes. So that game would only have one winner always. Like you would never be able to win if you are
right. Maybe it should be like a cooperative dexterity game where you're all trying to get the Roadrunner, but it's like pretty much impossible to do. I don't know. But I like the idea of
nobody can win.
Yeah, a game no one can win. But I do like this idea of like having a kit with just all this wacky stuff. Like here's a spring and here's a little fake bomb that
you could create a million expansions with that.
You could.
Every expansion has new contraptions and
yeah. And half of the game is like building it, trying to build all these weird things to like
they explode in your face.
Yeah, they just explode. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner because I just read the first. Like, I had this book as a kid, and this book it's amazing. It's pristine still, right? This book I had as a kid, Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote. It looks like I bought it yesterday.
Oh wow!
And I was reading it to Ren the other day, and she asked so many questions. She was just like, "Why is he doing this? Like, why is he coming after the Roadrunner? I don't know. He's hungry." But why is he using this and she just didn't understand the whole concept. She's like, I don't understand why he's bothering with this. I'm like, oh, well, just go with it, Ren.
That is awesome.
I think the humor does, it's probably, I don't know if it's translated to her generation or not. Or maybe she just doesn't think it's funny, but yeah.
Funny you mentioned that because the two, main ones I thought about when I was thinking about this topic was not cartoons I watched on the TV, but books I read. And there were two of my favorites was Lucky Luke, but also the main one, which is, I think, one of the best, comic books ever made, which is Asterix.
Oh, yeah, Asterix.
And there is so much humor and so much subtle, references in those books, that it's, I don't know how you would, you'd probably need Awaken Realms doing a 100 mission campaign of Asterix to, you know what I mean? Like to fit into the world of it, because otherwise, a simple mechanic wouldn't translate the world enough. Yeah, wouldn't do it justice. What about you?
That would be a good one. Oh, geez. I mean, I liked a lot of cartoons, but I'm kind of the same as you. Like, I wouldn't know how to translate them into a board game. But I used to love Super Ted. I guess that could be a fun campaign game too, because Super Ted goes on all these different adventures, and yeah. All right, I'll read the ones from our socials. David Joseph said Astro Boy, and he's already put he's basically merged some games. He's like, Bot Factory, but with the weapons tech tree from Eclipse and monster killing from Arnak.
Okay.
I don't think I didn't watch Astro Boy, so I'm not really,
I know about it, but I haven't watched it. I think it's a bit later.
Yeah. Indie Game Alliance said Inspector Gadget, and it would have incredible machine-style Rube Goldberg mechanics to solve puzzles and defeat crime. Oh, that sounds cool. That sounds like something I want to play. Yeah. I loved Inspector Gadget as well.
Yeah, me too.
Shree Nazreen said Gem and the Holograms. Maybe that's a newer one because I don't know that one, but now I want to look it up because it sounds awesome. Stuart McCune said cooperative game where you're playing members of the Thundercats. There we go. With asymmetric powers and character advancement while you overcome Momura's machinations. Do you know what else? I just remembered Dino Riders. I was obsessed with this show, Dino Riders. Did you know about this one?
What's Dino Riders?
It was around the time of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, original. But it was basically, I think it was set up only to sell toys. Like they had toys, which were these little people figures that rode around on dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs had gun turrets, and they'd sit on baskets in the
sounds
dinosaurs.
Amazing.
Oh my god, we had all of the toys. We got sucked in bad. We thought the show came first, and they just had these amazing toys with it, but it was the opposite. It was actually a whole ruse just to get you to buy the toys, but it totally worked. But we also had yeah, we had like the VHS Dino Riders that we just wore out because we played it all the time. But that would have to be a war game for sure. Definitely.
No, of course.
You need the minis for that. Definitely. Yes. That'd be amazing.
That's awesome. That was a great question. Thank you to everyone who posted responses. I've read a lot of entertaining ones on our Discord. So
yeah, thank you, everybody. And the new question of the pod, Jeff, do you want to read it? Because it's your question.
Yeah, if we're happy to go with that.
Yeah.
So given we talked about a couple of games we think, have these sort of timeless designs, like, maybe Age of Steam and Gloomhaven. The question this week is, what game do you think is a timeless design and why? So, yeah, let us know we'll post the question on Discord, on Facebook. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
It's difficult to define timeless, but it's funny because I was on Paul Grogan's Slack community earlier in the week, and I was writing something. There was a discussion about Age of Steam, and I said I love the game, etc., etc. And at some point, I said I think this is a timeless game.
Yeah.
And a couple of people said, "Well, we reckon that is the correct word to describe this game."
Yeah.
There's something about certain aspects of some games. So yeah, let us know.
Yeah. I do think Age of Steam is genre defining, and I'm trying to think of what else that would be in like the Eurospace.
I'm sure the community will give us some crafty responses. So looking forward to those.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. And I mean, I even want to say like Terra Mystica is heading that way because Gaia Project hugely popular. Then they came out with like the small one.
How many games has it spawned now?
Right, lots.
Expansions, Gaia Project, Age of Innovation that's coming out this year. Terra Nova.
Terra Nova, that's the one I was trying to. Yeah.
Like we're talking 3-4 games plus all the expansions. So
yeah.
Let's see what the community has to say.
Absolutely. So if you want to support the podcast and what we do, you can sign up to Patreon. We have a Patreon. We do different things for our Patreons. We do like special events sometimes, like in-person events. We do online events sometimes with our Patrons. We just had one the other week, didn't we, Jeff? We were both there.
That was hilarious. That was very enjoyable watching Connor getting defeated in maths by Paul Grogan. That was very enjoyable.
Because Connor is a maths teacher.
He didn't enjoy it. It was funny to watch.
But there are also other, there's plenty of ways to support us without donating. You can give us like a good review on Apple Podcasts. We would love that. Or Spotify also has a rating system. It doesn't take long to leave a little review, and it really helps us out. So that would be, that would mean the world to us. You can also get involved. Just join our Facebook community or follow us on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. We're all around. The Discord, it's a very lively Discord. We have a lot of games, running in there. The game design channel's really great. So there's often game designers in there talking about, their new, what they've got going on, looking for playtesters. If you want to do that, there's an option to do that. And just all the links for all those are in the show notes. And we would appreciate your support as much as you can. Thank you so much. Also, Patreons, want to say individual shout outs for Adam Ridgway, Benjamin Todd, Carl Van Ostrand, and Kevin Berry. Thank you guys so much for being Patreons. And now to the scary part.
The scary part.
Squaring of an oath. Square it away.
Square an oath. We will square
that
things now.
Square it away makes sense, right? Oh my God. It's not even late. Def, your oath is to do your taxes? Is that your oath?
So we need to explain to the listeners what just happened. We have this sheet that we keep track of what's happening in the episode, right? And there's this section that says swear an oath, and mine says ATO.
Yeah, it's the only possible explanation.
So, yes, my oath was to play the biggest game I have in my collection. It's also the scariest and most intimidating one I've seen so far, and that was Aeon Trespass Odyssey.
Oh, yes.
Also known as ATO.
Australian Tax Office, yeah.
It almost took up as much money as the ATO this year, so there is that. I did manage to play that, but not without spending a ridiculous amount of effort to printing a complete
rules errata or something.
No, organizer for the game.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even attempt to start learning it until I printed a 3D organizer for the game to be able to sort out all the bits and pieces. There's a ridiculous amount of things in this game, but a member of our community came over. Donnie came over a couple of weeks ago, and we played the tutorial, which, I mean, it's a tutorial, but it still took us like 4 hours to get through.
Oh, wow.
The game is massive. Like the premise of the game is so big. I don't know how you play other games if you're playing this. Like it does remind me of some of the comments that people that play a lot of Kingdom Death Monster make around making it a lifestyle game.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of this we'll manage to play. We both really enjoyed it. Yeah, looking forward to playing a bit more of it. But I managed to do it, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
That was my oath. As far as a new oath is concerned, I think I might switch gears here a bit. I got a couple of light games from More Than Meeples yesterday that was present at our Brisbane game day.
Mm-hmm.
That was Trailblazers, Ryan Courtney's new game, and Acropolis.
Mm-hmm.
It's this nice light tile laying or tile laying city building game. And although I've played both of these games, Trailblazers, I think we played it together, Sarah, when Ryan was in the first stages of playtest.
Yeah. It didn't look pretty, but it was still good even then.
No. So obviously I really want to play it on the table, the finished product now.
Yeah.
I did play it with Jules a few months ago, but this is my copy and I want to play mine.
Yep, that makes sense.
And Acropolis, I've played a few times on Board Game Arena, and I'm surprised by it. I think it is it's probably a standout in that light category tile laying games. And I think it's better than Cascadia, which we praised a lot last year. So I'm very keen to play this with the family and the girls. I think we're going to enjoy this at home.
Mm-hmm.
So those two games are my new oath.
Nice. Well,
what about you?
Well, I feel almost like I've cheated a little bit. Well, okay, so
in this part of the show, everybody cheats.
True. Okay, so I had this ongoing oath to play everything from my shelf of shame. Like, just I don't want this shelf of shame anymore. Okay.
Yes.
But I had a game that was on pre-order that I got. And I also got a gift from Ian. He gave me when I met him, he gave me Trick of the Rails. So he actually added, it was so lovely. He gifted me a game, but also it added to my oath. And
this is not helping Ian.
Yeah, right? And the other one that I had on pre-order, I'd totally forgotten about. So it was Pipe Mats. And how weird is this? So the Motor City Gameworks guy, because it's by Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle, they were on the show. Matt Riddle was on the show last week, and that was when Dean was like, this game finally came in, and I took it out of his hands while that show was being recorded. And I'm like, how weird is this? Because they told me about it last time they were on the show. And then this time when they're on the show, I'm getting it. So it was totally weird, but
just to remind you, we're talking about your oath. So I feel like you're trying to lead us somewhere.
But I played these 2 games. So I added them to my shelf of shame, but I played
immediately
them.
played them.
Right. So that's okay.
That counts.
Yeah, I guess. It didn't make my shelf of shame any smaller, but at least I played them. So
prevented it from becoming larger.
That's right. That's true.
So it counts.
Okay, good. That's as it sounds, everybody. So both of them were really good. I enjoyed both of them. Pipe Mats is really interesting because it actually, they said to me that it was inspired kind of by Parade and Arboretum. And I had a little bit of Arboretum vibes because I don't know if you played that, but
I have it. I think it's a clever game.
Oh, it's so clever, and it's so mean. This one's not quite as mean as that.
Very mean.
This one's not quite as mean as that, but you do have to get majorities of these birds that are all just fluttering around this bird feeder. It's so cute. It's really cute. But it's a really clever mechanic where the bird that's actually at the front of the bird feeder is kind of competing with all the other birds that want to get into the bird feeder, right?
Okay.
And they all have numbers. So if you ever add one, when you add a card, you're adding it to the ones on the ground trying to get to the bird feeder, right? And you can imagine all these birds are like, oh, we've got the numbers. We're going to pick on this big bird here and we're going to get in there to get the seed. And so that's kind of what happens. And you can have these really cool cascading effects where, let's say the one at the bird feeder is like 5 and you've got 2 on the ground, one's worth 1 and one's worth 3. If you put another one worth 3, now you can see there's the value of the birds on the ground is higher than the 5, right? So you've got 7 versus 5. So what happens is you take the 5 into your display.
Okay.
So you'll get the one that's been at the feeder. Yep. And then the one with the next highest number goes to the feeder. And so the one that has a 3 will go to the feeder, but then you've still got a 1 and a 3 on the ground. That's still higher again. So you've got 4 versus 3. So that then you take that one. So you can have these cascading things. You get the new bird at the feeder into your pile, and then the other 3 goes there. So you can have these cascading events, which is really cool. And whenever you take one from the feeder, the difference is you also you work out the difference. So 7 minus 5 would be 2, and you count 2 cards from the top of the feeder, and there's all these seed cards, and you get those as points as well. So you get seed cards that are always points. The bird cards aren't always points, Steph, because you have to have the majority of that species.
Okay.
That's the bit that's kind of a bit like Arboretum.
That sounds cool. Yeah.
And if you get a male and a female of the same number bird and the same species, then they're like lovers, and you get 5 points for that, for love birds.
Oh, no.
Which is very cute.
Whether
you have all of them or not, doesn't matter. You still get 5 points.
That's nice.
Very cute little game.
Excellent.
Trick of the Rails, I think I might sizzle. I like it that much. But it's strange. It's different. It's really different. I can't wait to tell you about this, but I'm going to make you all wait because I'm probably going to sizzle it. So.
Okay. So is there a new oath somewhere in there?
I'm still plowing away at this. I don't know.
Okay. Well, pick the next 2 games off your shelf of shame.
Oh, okay. You're making me do that. All right. Okay. That's a really good question because I know game day's coming up, so yes. I could add one. I can add one for that.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like to play Bear Raid because I have had that for so long.
Bear Raid,
and it's another Ryan Courtney game. It's the one where you're shorting stocks.
Oh yes, I wanted to back that, but it had an absolute requirement for higher player count, and I was at the time where I didn't have a lot of people to play with, and I didn't back it. Yeah. Oh yes,
I think it doesn't require 4, but I think it's recommended with 4 or more. So that's a good one for game day.
Fantastic.
So, all right, I'll do that. Okay. You're forcing me to do this, and then another one might be probably modern art because it's really getting ridiculous. I haven't played this game because I know I'll like it. So, and they're not too heavy. That's good.
I
can do those on game day. I'm kind of a bit burnt from trying to teach Station Fall last time that was just such a big game to teach on a game day. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tone it down a little bit in the next one.
That's what I always say. And then yesterday I taught Age of Steam and Guy Project. I love the games. I can't,
Yeah.
Get the opportunity to introduce new people to games is very rewarding.
Yeah, it is. Especially wonderful games like that people are going to be wowed by.
Well, there you go. That is the oath then. Bear.
That's it.
Bear
Raid and Modern Art. Yes, and you're going to do your taxes.
And I have to do my taxes, yes.
It's very early, actually. It's too early. You can't do them yet. Oh, dear. All right. Thank you so much, Def.
Thank you, Sarah.
We did okay, just the two of us, but we made it.
We did. All good.
We made it.
We could talk about more Frosthaven and Age of Steam is needed, but nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, we'll save it for Patreon. We can do a Patreon ramble on about Frosthaven and Age of Steam.
There you go. Patreon episode coming up. Yeah. Age of Steam versus Frosthaven.
Versus? Don't make me choose. Oh, no.
No, it could be like I don't know. It could be like an unmatched thing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I like it. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Hope your next game is a sizzling one.
Cheers.
You say GIF and not GIF.
Is it GIF or GIF?
I'm pretty sure everyone in the world says GIF except
me. Oh, shit.
No, but never change.
GIF.
Never change. No, it's GIF. It's
GIF?
GIF is, you know what GIF is? It's a cleaning product.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure GIF is a cleaning product. Look.
That rings a bell now you mentioned.
Yeah. It is. Hi, everybody. I can't speak. Oh, no.
That's the best intro ever.
Hi, everybody. Wait.
No, I'll shut up.